Hi, welcome to Bella Chats. I'm Isabel Bouchard, and this is a show where we interview people within the community on just about everything. Our first guest is Dr. Belcher, the superintendent for all Columbia Public Schools. Dr. Belcher has 30 years of experience working in education and is involved in numerous projects, one being the United Way. So, Dr. Belcher, for someone who hasn't heard anything about the United Way, what's something you could tell us about it?
Well, United Way is a nationally known model of a not-for-profit group that raises funds to address community needs. It usually starts out with trying to help people out of poverty, food scarcity, housing, all those kind of issues that go with having need. The Heart of Missouri United Way has recently changed to a community impact model, which is focusing more on education and offering pathways out of poverty. So it's impacting our school children and their families more than it has in the past.
Okay. So how exactly has it been working in the community already?
Well, it used to be that they funded certain agencies, Boy Scouts and Boys and Girls Club, as an agency funder. And recently they changed that to where you have to write a grant and say, with your funding, this is how we're going to impact, say, third grade reading, or middle school success, or access to be ready for kindergarten. They have to have goals and measures that they can do. I'm the campaign chair this year, and so we're trying to raise $4 million. And that $4 million will go to agencies that have submitted a plan and been approved that will try to impact those educational needs. There are other needs as well. For example, there's one for safety net. So there are certain organizations that can apply and say there's a real need for homeless youth or things like this that are based on real safety needs, and they fund those as well. So they try to take that $4 million and give it to programs that are showing a business plan that can really make a difference. And then they also try to help build capacity and support those agencies so they can do well. Because if an agency does well, let's just say Boys and Girls Club really does well and the kids start to read better and have better school attendance and all those issues, then wouldn't we want to double the numbers of kids they serve because they're so well, and they can start to seek national and state grants to expand their program for the betterment of the community.
Right. So is this the first year that this has taken off, or how many years has this been going on?
This is the second year of community impact. Before that, it was a more traditional model to where they had certain agencies that were, quote, United Way agencies that got the funding. So it's been a shift in just the philosophy about how you get at poverty and how you get at improving a community, to make more of an impact model, a business model, that you have to have measures and that you have to be able to show success in order to continue to get funding. Because $4 million doesn't go very far. And so they're trying to make the best use of that dollars for the impact on the students, because every kid that we can get out of that cycle is a kid that becomes less dependent on social agency and welfare programs in the future.
Okay, and if you think this year goes well, do you think that they'll raise the budget in the future?
Well, they can only raise the budget if they get more money from the community. So their budget is totally dependent upon giving from organizations. For example, Columbia Public Schools has a goal of to give $100,000 to United Way. The University of Missouri has a goal of about $1 million. Boone Bank might have a goal of $80,000. They really engage with all the business community to give to this organization as a way of making the community more livable, better for kids, more prosperous, because a good community to where we help kids get access out of poverty into jobs benefits the whole community. So it's a really broad mission, and it involves getting a lot of people involved. But that's been a United Way history for over 100 years.
That's good. What about the new initiative that the school is taking, something called the World Cafe? Could you tell us a little bit about that too?
Well, that's been one of the things I brought here. Is every year I try to have one or two big, broad community discussions. Because, for example, with 7 elected board members, they have to make decisions about big things. But what we want to do before we get into some of the bigger decisions, to get a large group of the community that may be more impacted by one of the initiatives we're talking about, and put board members around tables and rotate people around to have discussions about the topics. Therefore, when a board member goes down to make a decision, say in January, February, they're not just thinking about their perspective, they've heard other people talk about it in a very structured way. This year we just happened to pick on career and college readiness. And what we know is the world is changing, and there is career and college, not career or college. Right. Many people may go out and work in a career for a couple years in order to make some income, but they eventually want to continue their education to be able to do something different in that career path or some other way. We also know some kids want to go to a 4-year degree program. That's fine too. But we have to do a better job of getting kids prepared to know what's out there, what's appropriate for them, what they can afford, what kind of jobs are there once they get through a college degree program, because the jobs in the market are much different than they were 20 years ago. And the research is showing a lot of college graduates not being able to find employment in their field, and they're often being underemployed. We also know on the other end, there are a lot of kids that can, say, get a certificate in welding or EMT training that we offer right here at the Career Center and go out and make $40,000, $50,000 right out of high school because they have a certificate, they have a skill set. So that's a pretty broad discussion for us. How do we start to try to make sure that people like you understand what options there are and that there's no wrong pathway, there's just a pathway that best fits you. But the bottom line is you're going to have to do something after high school in order to get a skill set that makes you more employable than a minimum wage job.
How does the World Cafe, what's the relationship between them and the United Way?
It's not. The United Way comes sometimes because one of the first ones we did was on the achievement gap.
Okay.
And the gap between different subsets of kids in the general public, whether it be black students versus the general population or kids from poverty in the general population. And they've attended those because their missions often are parallel with what we do. So those are separate issues, but World Cafes are meant to get the community engaged, both civic community, business community, so you'll often see a lot of those groups interacting.
Okay, moving on to further improvements, how's the new high school battle going?
It is going well. With one of those deals, we knew what we were doing, and I was in Blue Springs as administrator years ago when we opened Blue Springs South. And so our strategy there was to take everything you could to create a culture of that high school before you opened. And so, as you know, we assigned teachers to the high schools a year before we opened Battle. We got kids over there for tours and opportunities during that previous school year. We then had a really big summer school program. About 500 kids took summer school.
Wow.
We had all our camps and our arts and music and anything we could find to get them on campus, and got them t-shirts and got them hats and did all that stuff that you want to do to build that team spirit like you have here at Rockbridge High School and Hickman High School. They are Hickman Cupies or the Rockbridge Bruins, and we wanted Battle Spartans before we opened the high school. And I can say in 32 years, I've never had an opening of school that's been that smooth. And Battle High School was just like it had opened up again. It wasn't a lot of flash. Kids showed up, they had been there, they were part of the school, and we have 1,100 kids showing up there every day having a great experience.
I've heard from Battle that there's rules such as you're not allowed to bring drinks, or kids don't carry backpacks, they only just have their iPads. Is that a true thing?
I don't know.
You don't know?
That's below my pay grade. There's so many things going on that unless it gets to a level of complaint or something, oftentimes I won't know those specifics. I talked with the principal today. She said the one-on-one iPad issue is going well. The kids are really sort of leading the way for us, adults, on how they use them, and hopefully in the next year we'll pass that same model on to Rockbridge and Hickman.
So are we trying to eliminate paper and mainly just move from textbooks just to iPads, or what do you think this is going to look like?
Yes, I think that's one of the issues. The textbooks are outdated by the time they're printed anymore. They're just it's an archaic model. And so the textbook companies are getting smarter, and they're producing more of their digital type book formats, but they're also linking it to video, to links to research sites that they host, to lots of things. So we know that's the way to go in the future. And that in Battle we were just able, because we had to spend money somehow, and we decided instead of buying books, which we would have had to buy, we can buy iPads cheaper. So we saved money, whereas here at Rockbridge or Hickman, we already had the books. And so the expense would have been more. You have to wait until those books phase out before you can start to buy the materials. So what we did was sort of a jump start. If you take an AP class at Hickman and Rockbridge, you have an iPad mini. And then that's to get us sort of familiar with it, and we think we'll have the finances next year then to make Rockbridge and Hickman also a one-to-one initiative. But we want to give Battle a chance to make sure that we learned what all the glitches and the little issues were before we took it system-wide.
Okay, are there going to be any other technical advancements in the future that you can see, or is iPads the big deal right now?
I think I have absolutely no idea what the advancements are going to be. It's just moving so rapidly.
Yeah.
Our issue is we had to give the infrastructure in place to make it happen. When I came here, no building was wireless. And we didn't have the hookups, we didn't have the fiber, and we knew this was coming. Everyone knew. All the meetings I went to talked about the wireless community being able to access all the materials that kids would have to learn, and we had to get prepared. So we passed bond issues. We passed a levy to fund the instructional technology to get there. And May 31st of this year, we actually were wireless in every building. We ran into a little glitch this year when the system gets overloaded a little bit because of some equipment. We're replacing that equipment by the middle of October. We'll have that resolved so that the speeds and the connectivities are really good, because we know kids, you guys are natives to the technology.
Right.
And you just expect to use it. You're natural with it. That's the way you need to learn. And we want to, whatever it is that makes it easier to organize information, share information, learn new information, we want to give it to the students in a way that's ethical, equitable, so that there's no difference in where you're at, but also that we manage it to where it doesn't become negative. For example, in Los Angeles, they gave a one-to-one to every kid in Los Angeles, and they hacked in the system. They're playing games and stuff like that. Well, some of that's going to happen. Just it doesn't matter what you do.
Of course.
we shouldn't punish everyone because a few kids don't use it appropriately. So our strategy has always been trust the kids, give them the stuff. Those that don't abide by it, then we have to deal with that on a one-to-one basis. But right now at Battle High School, I think there's been a broken iPad and one that's been lost that couldn't be found through the out of 1,100.
Yeah.
That's pretty responsible.
Good ratios right there. Yeah. What about as the district is growing and the community is getting so large now and populated, what's going on with new elementary schools? Are we still in the process of building some, or how's the construction looking with those?
Well, we're all over this. One, we're trying to replace some trailers, so like West Boulevard Elementary and Shepherd, we're just going to build new classroom wings, and once those are done, we'll get rid of the trailers. So we won't really add capacity for students to that building, we'll just pick better space. But we broke ground last week on the Northeast Elementary School, which is right out by Battle High School. That will sit on a 30-acre site that will serve about 450 students. It'll take us a couple years to build it, so it will open August 15th, or August 2015. We should make an announcement this week that we purchased property on the southwest side of town, and that school will open in 2016.
Wow.
And we will have a bond issue and put in front of the voters in April of this year to build a school to replace Cedar Ridge Elementary School, because it's a very small school. We just need more space. That area, Old Hawthorne, is going to grow, and that would be a school for 600. The school on the southwest side of town is 600. So we've got plans for 3 elementary schools within the next 4 years.
Are we looking at building any more middle schools on top of that, or just the elementary schools?
Just elementary. Our secondary capacity is really good. High schools are good. We have about room for 4,800 middle school students in our 6 middle schools. We have 3,800 middle school students this year.
That's a lot.
So we have 1,000 growth, but the problem is they've concentrated. Gentry's was a little bit more crowded than we thought, and so Smithton. So we have to figure out a way to distribute those kids more evenly, because we have plenty of space. For example, West Middle School has 600 students, and it could hold easily 1,000 students. So when we changed the boundaries, people moved to where they wanted to go to school, and more people moved to the Gentry side of town than the Jeff side of town. Those are sister middle schools. And so we're working on some plans to make an opportunity for people to transfer to Jeff for special programs.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you've seen many changes in education throughout your many years of experience.
And that gray hair will tell you that, yes.
So how do you think these changes compare to what you've seen in the past? There's
been more changes in Columbia in 5 years, and it just happened to be because Columbia was ripe for change, than I'd probably seen in 25. The movement to a wireless, fully digital, 24/7 access technology has changed the game. We've seen much more attention to equity, treating all kids fairly, dealing with the issues of bullying. That's been a social change that the schools have embraced. We've been doing that well in Columbia, but it's still an uphill battle, because equity and tolerance is a tough issue to deal with immature beings, and students by definition are immature, and they're growing and developing. You know, most people are immature, but kids are the ones that are actually by definition immature. So I've seen those issues, and then I think the other thing that we've seen is just this whole idea that at some point information is just something you can buy. That's not education. It's going to be available to anybody who wants it. What's going to make you educated is the facilitation of learning around information, processing information, making decisions with information, sharing information. All that stuff becomes a much higher level of skill than the old model was. An educated person was someone that was well read and knew lots of things about a lot of things. There's so much information now, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And so anyone could be well read in what they want, but can they use that information to make products, to sell a service, to provide benefit to society or the economy, is becoming a different model than we've been used to.
Exactly. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for joining us, guys, on our very first episode of Bella Chats. I hope you enjoyed our time together, and I'll see you next time.